This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. I am your host, Miles Taylor. And listen up, folks. One of the easiest ways to tell when Donald Trump is getting himself into political trouble is when Republicans start publicly disagreeing with him. And today, we've got two big examples of that. And then we're going to dive back into a known territory of defiance, but one that we have not covered in a while. ICE and Donald Trump's immigration agenda, because it is ramping back up. And guess what? The defiance to it is going to ramp back up as well. And we're going to make sure of it. We're going to tell you why. I want to bring in my Defiance.org co-founder, Xander Schultz, into the conversation. Xander, we got a lot to talk about, not just today, but the rest of the week on this front.
I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Before we get into it, let me just say for folks, I have to say this. I'm legally obligated to say this. Okay, not quite. But if there's a little heart button on your screen, hit it. If there's a little thumbs up button on your screen, hit it. If there's a subscribe button on your screen, hit it. Why? You're not doing that for me. You're not doing that for Xander. You are doing that for your democracy. This organization exists as a nonprofit club for the courageous to fight Trump's corruption. When you like or when you share or when you subscribe, guess what? That's a little tiny thing you can do to push this news and information further out into the world and get more people joining the effort to counter those abuses of power. That's it. There's no secret terms and conditions if you hit the heart button. It's just an indication that you want to fight back to protect our democracy. Smallest thing you can do, big impact in the long run. All right, enough of that. Rapid fire resistance. I want to go through a couple of different things, Xander, that have happened in a short period of time to show the burgeoning defiance against Donald Trump, but also some of the ways that his failures have, let's say, piled up on the world stage. Let's start with this. The Trump curse. The Trump curse, of course, strikes again. Donald Trump tried to meddle in Team USA's World Cup run, but Belgium still advanced with a 4-1 win. We are, of course, disappointed for Team USA, especially those of us who grew up playing soccer for many, many years. But it's another reminder that Donald Trump still has what we call the minus touch. Actually, credit to a YouTube viewer for that phrase, the minus touch. Or as Rick Wilson used to say, everything Trump touches dies. Watch out, Team USA. Watch out, anyone who Donald Trump says he's going to go help out. Don't let him touch you. You'll die. That sounded weirder than I meant for it to sound, but Xander, we're going to keep
also technically true. Unfortunately.
Yeah. It's don't get near the guy. Trust me. Believe me when I say my life would be a lot better if I never went into the first Trump administration, if I didn't have to tango with this corrupt orange sociopath. Things would be a lot easier. But we're going to keep going here because yesterday, in the spirit of rapid fire resistance, an Ohio federal judge blocked a big part of Donald Trump's immigration agenda, ordering the White House to resume processing work permits and green card applications after finding that Donald Trump's pause of work permits and green card applications was driven by, surprise, surprise, hostility toward immigrants. The ruling applies to immigrants from countries including Burma, Canada, Iran, Nigeria, Syria, Tanzania, and Venezuela. And I could go on for days. If that judge is looking for someone to come testify to first-person interactions with the president of the United States in the Oval Office about how he talked about how he wanted more white rich people to come into the United States and fewer poor brown and black people, I could go testify to that. So, Judge, I'm just putting that out there for you. On with the flow, Xander. Wisconsin's Supreme Court rejected a conservative group's attempt to access private guardianship records, protecting the privacy of vulnerable voters in a case rooted in efforts to challenge the 2020 election. That's good. We need the state Supreme Court standing up against these efforts to go seize voting records on behalf of the Trump administration. But the defiance doesn't stop there, folks, because our partners at Justice Connection report that more than 1,200 former Department of Justice employees have signed a 59-page letter urging senators to reject Todd Blanche's nomination. This is a big one, folks. 1,200 former Justice Department employees, including some of the biggest prosecutors in the nation, have signed on to this letter saying to the United States Senate, do not put this man in charge of that building. That letter, by the way, includes Republicans, Democrats, and independents. It's not a partisan letter. It is people who've served in that department saying that this man, Trump's man, is incapable of running it. And then over at the Democracy Defenders Fund, another organization that Defiance.org has supported, in addition to Justice Connection, who I just mentioned, DDF's co-founder Norm Eisen, it turns out, is representing former U.S. Olympic canoe racer David Hearn. Why does that name sound familiar? Well, Hearn faces felony charges for allegedly damaging the liner of the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool after touching a loose peeling section. His case heads to court on Thursday, and we are glad he's defended by one of the best lawyers in the United States of America, Norm Eisen, who Defiance.org is proud to continue supporting in his work. And then finally, our friends over at Democracy Docket, Mark Elias and company, well, they've taken additional actions, and a federal judge is responding. A federal judge denied the Trump Justice Department's request to pause an injunction blocking Trump's mail-in voting executive order. As a result, Trump's mail-in voting executive order remains blocked in 23 states and Washington, D.C. That's really crucial. For folks who have not been following along, a few months ago, the president issued an order basically saying he was going to take over mail-in voting in the United States, that he was going to be able to have his U.S. Postal Service decide whose mail-in ballots got delivered and whose didn't, which, if it was carried out, would be one of the most egregious attacks on democracy in American history. It would be a full rewrite of the Constitution. The president of the United States does not get to personally decide whether your vote gets counted or not. But this executive order tried to give Trump that power. And our friends at Democracy Docket, our friends at Campaign Legal Center, who is also a Defiance.org grantee, have pushed to stop it. Xander, what I love about this rapid fire Defiance list is like half of these stories involve things Defiance.org members have helped make possible.
Yeah, Defiance grantees throughout. I love rapid fire in general. This was a Mercedes idea. This is a great idea. I feel fantastic.
That's the whole program. So we did the whole program in 10 minutes, guys. It was great to be on with you. No, just kidding. But really,
it's wonderful. The chat's going nuts. Laura Tompkins says, great news. She's dancing. Cheryl saying such fierce fires. This is fit.
Laura, I'm dancing too. Like this. I'm dancing. This is what Defiance looks and feels like.
This is what happens when a lifelong Republican dances, if you were wondering. That's what the whole RNC looks like. It's like
we have existed for 9 months. I think maybe less than 9 months. We've existed for less than 9 months. And basically half of those acts of defiance have been enabled by you all. If you're someone who wandered into this live stream today and you're like, well, who are these Defiance.org people? Well, we're not the puppets of some secret billionaires. We are a group of ordinary Americans. We are a crowd-funded effort to go bring the defiance to Donald Trump's doorstep. And again, whether it's lawsuits or challenges or protests or support for prosecutors, you name it, we're bringing it. And we are showing up on Donald Trump's doorstep. So all good news today on that front. But Xander, we got a lot of other things to cover. And so I want to jump into another piece of this, which is that Donald Trump, of course, has spent many years remaking the Republican Party that I once was a part of into his own image. And today, we are seeing something interesting, my friend, on two completely different issues. Members of his own party are starting to push back. I want to start overseas, and I'm going to scroll to this to give you guys the update on what's happening with the NATO summit, because Donald Trump is in Turkey for this summit of NATO countries. And before he even landed, the New York Times reported that his administration is preparing to reverse one of Trump's own national security decisions from his first term. According to multiple senior administration officials, Trump is preparing to restore Turkey's access to America's F-35 stealth fighter program, which is a big deal, you guys, in and of itself. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. But it's even more of a big deal because Trump was the very one who kicked Turkey out of the program back in 2019. Why did he do that? Because Turkey purchased Russia's S-400 missile defense system. At the time, Trump's own White House warned that allowing Turkey to possess both the S-400, Russian equipment, and America's most advanced stealth fighter posed an unacceptable risk to national security. And that decision was right. I was in government when these conversations were happening, and officials did fear that the Russian system could be dangerous. And as folks have talked about in the media, there was worries that the Russian system could collect intelligence on the F-35's radar signature and stealth technology, potentially doing what? Giving Moscow insights into one of America's most sophisticated military aircraft. Congress, by the way, Xander, also agreed with that. Members of Congress were like, yeah, let's not give Turkey this super sophisticated U.S. military equipment if they're screwing around in the sandbox with the Russians. In fact, lawmakers passed a bipartisan law in 2020 specifically prohibiting Turkey from rejoining the F-35 program unless those Russian systems were removed. Now, according to the New York Times, Trump's team has spent weeks trying to find a workaround. One proposal would have Turkey transfer the S-400 system to a third party. Another would render the missile system inoperable. The details still being negotiated, but Trump was asked a pretty straightforward question. If the concern was serious enough to sanction Turkey 6 years ago, does he still have those concerns today? And take a look at what he had to say.
The defense system going to be handed over to a third party as part of any deal with F-35s?
What does that mean?
Is it going to be handed over to a third party? Is that not part of the deal?
Third party? What is the third? With respect to what?
There's our concerns about the Russian missile defense system. Do you have those concerns about this system? Are they going to have to...
No concerns at all about anything. I mean, he's a leader of a country that he's made a much better country, much more powerful country, and you see it. I mean, it's beautiful. You get off the roads of your life.
Yeah, there it is, Xander. First of all, President,
we're learning a lot
he doesn't
of those
understand.
things.
He apparently doesn't understand what a third party is. Thought that was interesting. A third party. What's a third party? What's a third party? Well, here's another piece of it. It ruffled some feathers within the GOP. In fact, Senator John Cornyn responded to this press conference where it became clear that Trump might be giving away the F-35 to a country he said shouldn't have it by writing this on social media. 4 words. I hope this is wrong. Talk about understatement of the century. Other lawmakers from both parties have said the same thing in different ways. To them, it's pretty clear. Unless Turkey gets rid of its Russian equipment, Congress has no interest in sending technology we have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on over to Turkey. But guys, that's not how Donald Trump operates. Donald Trump operates on trades. Is something going to be good for him? And Xander, he wants Erdogan to be his buddy because Erdogan, the president of Turkey, operates the way that Donald Trump wants to operate, a dictator inside of a democracy. As a matter of fact, he said today that he almost skipped the NATO summit altogether and only attended because Erdogan was hosting it. So once again, Trump's personal relationships with strongmen are the thing that he prioritizes and are putting him on a collision course with members of his own party. I got to say, I've lived this with the guy, Xander. I've lived his petulant, foot-dragging self-pity about having to go to meetings with Western democracies. And it's no surprise that he wanted to back out of the NATO summit. But I hope more Republicans wake up that the only reason he's wheeling and dealing with NATO is because it seems like he gets to do things that the Russians want him to do, and he gets to do things that allow him to cozy up with quasi-dictators.
Yeah. I mean, it is easier to work with dictators if you're a dictator. It is easier to do quid pro quos and extort, from each other's own people and give that capital to each other. Yeah, it makes sense. That's who he wants to be. He said it from the beginning. Shout out to you, Miles, though, and gang for having Trump take that firm stance and Trump won. I'm sure that wasn't easy getting Trump to do something intelligent along national defense lines, but go ahead.
Well, here was the thing. He had 4 years to think about all the ways he could profit off of the presidency.
Yes.
And I think he stewed a lot in those 4 years and thought, oh, wow, I had all of these people that told me, don't break the law, don't do this, don't use your powers for personal enrichment. No, I'm going to come back in, and anywhere I can cut a deal with someone where it's going to personally benefit me, I'm going to go do it. And that's what he's done. That's what he's done. And it's not like we were some united cabal working to thwart his interests. Most of us didn't even know each other that went into the Trump administration, right? But most of us also knew we didn't want to go to prison for the guy. So we weren't going to say yes to breaking the law. We weren't going to say yes to things that would empower our adversaries who want to kill Americans. It's not what the current Trump administration is doing. In fact, doing very much the opposite. But this isn't the only place, Xander, where Republicans are starting to balk and finally get a little bit nervous about this guy in the White House. As we all know, many of these elected Republicans are heading into difficult elections in the 2026 midterms with a growing list of Trump-fueled concerns. And believe it or not, one of the biggest is money. More specifically, the giant pile of cash that Donald Trump is sitting on. According to Politico, Donald Trump's MAGA Inc. super PAC has amassed roughly $350 million. Xander, can you imagine if the Democratic Party had this kind of a war chest going into the midterms?
Sitting on it? Yeah. That's scary stuff. It's scary stuff. I mean, luckily, I don't know. Go through the story. I'm not going to react quite yet. I have thoughts, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, I would say this. What the Democratic Party would do is they would go spend it. They would go spend it to win the midterms. Because that's an extraordinary political war chest. But here's the problem. Donald Trump doesn't want to do that. Donald Trump has been sitting on the money. Now, technically, MAGA Inc. operates separately from Republican campaigns. Okay. But politically, everyone understands whose operation that is. And that when Donald Trump is out there raising money, he's raising for that war chest instead of for the Republican National Committee, with the understanding he's going to use that war chest for Republicans. Right? Trump has enormous influence over the organization, and Republicans have been expecting those resources helping them into the midterms. Well, instead, while Republican candidates are under siege this cycle, Trump's super PAC has yet to lay out any meaningful strategy for spending the money. In fact, according to Politico, MAGA Inc.'s last campaign expenditure was back in March. So, I mean, I'm not feeling bad for these pro-MAGA Republicans who made their bed with this guy, but he's not spending any cash to help them out. But he's been using the tough fight that they're in to raise money for himself. Since March, Republicans say Trump has done more to complicate their campaigns than to help them. No shit, Sherlock, including the war in Iran. Who could have seen
that coming, Miles? Who could have seen that aligning yourself with this psychopath? Would have been bad for business at some point.
And in an election year, for him to take us into a war that the American people didn't want us to go into, for him to shut down the signing of bipartisan legislation like the housing bill that could have made life more affordable, the tariffs, the taxes, the pressure on Congress to end birthright citizenship, the rulings against him, all the things that he's done to make life more difficult for Americans. And Republicans are now screaming, SOS, help us out. And please give us some money to undo the extraordinary damage that you've done. After all, that's the playbook, man. Is it not? Money equals messaging equals persuasion, at least in the GOP's eyes. And it's just not something MAGA Incorporated seems to be listening to. I wonder what they're saving all that cash for, Xander. I wonder if Donald Trump's got a fun project he wants to fund, like, an attempted anti-constitutional third term as president.
I wouldn't bet the house on it, but it's very possible he's holding it in Trump coin to pump up his own cryptocurrency as his reserve currency for this war chest. And that's the reason he's like hesitant to sell off and fund other things, is he doesn't want to drop the price of Trump coin. Who knows what he's doing? He's got like carte blanche on what to do with this capital, right? And he doesn't have to do anything specific on it. He has no kind of legal.
Well, look, I could be wrong, but mark the time and date. Tuesday, July 7th, 5:22 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to speculate that the majority of MAGA Inc.'s war chest is going to be saved for Donald Trump's effort to remain in public office in one way, shape, or form after his term. Call me on it if I'm wrong, but I think the majority of that money stays in there. Donald Trump will spend a few million because he's got to.
You're
There'll be a
100% right.
mutiny.
You're 100% right.
He's saving
I'm
the
doubling down
guy's
with
saving
you.
that cash for
it.
himself. It's not a bold prediction. That's like the easiest prediction is he's sitting on a third of $1 billion. He doesn't want to give that away to people. This is the man whose charity was shut down in New York because he was lying about the money that he was giving out to people. Like, he's not giving away money. But Xander, there's another story that's developing right now that shows why Republicans may need that money sooner than expected, because they already have a difficult midterm map, especially in the House. But there's now another question hanging over the party. And pardon my language here, but where the fuck is U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell? The former Senate Majority Leader brief statement saying that he's improving and continuing to work with staff. That is something that we need answers to, because that does not seem to be the case. The lack of information here has fueled intense speculation, especially after emergency dispatch audio surfaced, suggesting first responders were called to McConnell's home for what appeared to be a cardiac emergency. His office has declined to comment on those reports. And then, folks, today, something interesting happened. Several prominent Republican mouthpieces pushed out the same talking point, saying that McConnell was alert, engaged, and eager to return to work. All of them noted that they had talked to him for roughly 20 minutes, all saying the same thing. I don't know, Xander, is that a coincidence, or is there maybe a coordinated effort to spread information out there?
I mean, we only have 100 senators. We need all 100. This is reminiscent of who's the Democratic senator that was MIA for a while, and her staff was basically running her office not too long ago. I'm forgetting the name. This is such stereotypical Washington bullshit that all of the Americans are so sick of, is people desperately trying to preserve their own status, because this staff, McConnell's staff, knows that they lose their place in importance in America once McConnell's gone. And so they're clinging on to it. They're clinging on for priorities that are anything but the best interest of the American people. And it doesn't surprise me at all that this is how McConnell goes out. McConnell's been a nightmare for a while now. It doesn't surprise me that even his exit is a bit of a nightmare.
Well, there are weirder aspects to this story. Like, it's being alleged that he had a heart attack. Some people have even alleged that the former Senate Majority Leader was brain dead. I mean, there's been a lot of rampant speculation out there, the kind of things that you need his office to officially swat down and give a status update on, because he's a United States senator and the control of the body hangs in the balance. It gets even weirder, Xander, because Mitch McConnell's wife, who I used to work with, Elaine Chao, who served in the Bush administration, when I was in the Bush administration, who served as transportation secretary in the Trump administration, days after her husband was hospitalized, where was she? She was in China, meeting with Chinese officials, meeting with the vice premier of China. What on earth was Mitch McConnell's wife doing, taking official meetings with Chinese leaders while her husband was in the hospital and people were alleging he was potentially brain dead? What is going on here? Huge questions swirling around this, big implications for our democracy. His staff needs to show a spinal cord and go give the public some answers, okay? He's not just a private American citizen. He is in a very important public office. We deserve to know. And before we move on, there is another very important development happening related to the U.S. Senate. And that is the controversy I'm sure a lot of you have seen around Democratic Senate nominee Graham Plattner, who is now facing rape allegations made by former Maine Democratic activist Jenny Rassicot. Rassicot publicly detailed her account this week in interviews with Politico and CNN. Plattner has denied the allegations, but politically, today felt like a turning point, Xander, because Senator Bernie Sanders, who stood by Plattner through earlier controversies, who is considered to have basically knighted the guy to carry on Bernie's movement, is now calling for him to step aside. Sanders said this, quote, "In light of these very serious allegations, I have recommended that he step aside." He now joins Elizabeth Warren and Ro Khanna and other Democratic leaders who have withdrawn their support. And here's why this matters, because under Maine law, Graham Plattner has until July 13th to withdraw from the race. If he does, Democrats still have time to nominate another candidate in what is considered one of their best pickup opportunities in the country. Republican Senator Susan Collins is who he will be going up against. I want to be clear. This isn't simply about one candidate. Democrats have spent years arguing that accountability should matter no matter who's in power or what the public office is. And this is one of those moments, I think, Xander, where voters get to see whether the party lives up to its own standards. And I know that there's Democrats who disagree with this. I know that there's folks who still think he should stay in the race, but there's already other names being discussed who don't carry the same baggage. People like Jordan Wood, Dr. Nareef Shah, Troy Jackson, and Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows. There's a whole list of folks that are popping up. So there's an opportunity there for those Democrats to keep that seat in play. The test is, frankly, whether they still have a chance. So I don't know what you think on that. I don't know what your personal opinion is on this, but he's sure put them in a hell of a pickle.
Miles, what's your favorite line from Liar Liar?
Stop breaking the law, asshole!
Swalwell, Graham Plattner. Maybe we should just nominate women. I mean, just like we've lost so many people because it turns out they're freaking monsters in their personal life. Yeah, stop breaking the law, stop assaulting women, gang. Also direct to camera for Chuck Schumer in the Democratic Party. People knew Graham Plattner was a very compromised individual for some time now, right? You think about him as essentially a mercenary for Blackwater before this, and then also some of the allegations that happened beforehand. And Mainers were still willing to overlook a lot to nominate this guy or for him to win the primary because he so fearlessly embodied this attack on elitism and corruption. And so when you go to figure out whether or not we have, I don't know if we're going to have a race, but whoever is, if someone is anointed out of the Democratic Party to replace him, he should drop out. If someone's anointed, we should remember that the issues he won on were massively popular in Maine, so much so that people overlooked some of his flaws previous to this and not go back to a, Janet Mills type regular party Democrat. We've learned a lot through his popularity. We shouldn't forget what we've learned through his popularity just because the man himself drops out. We need to learn from the platforms that are winning these days and are these insurgent candidates that have been so successful.
Well, and look, I'll say this. My caveat is I tend to be skeptical of any effort to rapidly crowd cancel a person based on an allegation. We should still believe that people are innocent until proven guilty, but that's in a court of law. Mm-hmm. And when you're running for a Senate seat, what matters is the court of public opinion, and what matters is winning. And whether these are valid allegations or not, and if they are not, he should go fight them. And, and we'll see what happens. But that's not what this is about. This is ultimately about, in a race, are you going to go forward with a candidate who's accused of something like this? And can you live with that? And I don't think the Democratic Party can. I think there needs to be a respect for people who would make these allegations and not say, well, let's just write it out until we know what the answer is. There's not time in a race like this. And I don't know anything about Jenny Rassicott. I know nothing about her. I've only had a sliver of time to dive into this news story. But it would be kind of crazy, Xander, if she's qualified, if someone like that entered the race herself, right? I can't imagine a more incredible political arc than if the victim herself said, I'll run for the United States Senate. Anyway, that probably sounds crazy. I'm sure I'll get pilloried for suggesting that. But I would love to see in one of these cases, one of these guys who's been accused of awful misconduct, having their accuser go take their spot in the race as their asses get kicked out of the door. I don't know. That feels like it would be kind of a cool
It might not be her, but it does feel like we need to lean into female leadership a hell of a lot more. The boys are letting us down. Boys are letting us down, man. But look, also, Maine Democrats, wake your asses up and make your voices heard, right? If this guy is a clown car
If this guy is guilty of what he's being charged with, let's just get him out of there. Get him out of there. Make your voice heard. Let Graham Plattner know that you want to put someone else out there.
Yeah.
Push him aside. This is your race. So, but I suspect the people of Maine will be getting fired up and creative ideas will get thrown out there. I don't know. Maybe that seat could be even more competitive because of this, but we'll see what ends up happening. Final story we're going to talk about today is on immigration, because we've all, I think, been lulled into a false sense of security that the Trump administration has ramped down what it's doing. A very much false sense of security, because this administration has been continuing its immigration blitz under the radar. And of course, there have been a number of Supreme Court rulings the past few weeks, some against Donald Trump on immigration, others that make him feel empowered to charge forward. Well, that's what is happening. ICE enforcement is ramping back up across the country. So joining us now to talk about this is someone who's been on the front lines of this fight for years, someone who is a friend of Defiance.org, someone who we've spoken to a number of times on this program, and we are excited to welcome back. With us today is Jess Morales-Roquetto, a political strategist, immigration advocate, and co-founder of Supermajority. Jess, it's great to have you back, my friend.
Hi, guys. So nice to be back. Someday I'm going to come back and talk about something fun, but here we are,
one of those days.
back again.
Jess, we're going to need you to win this immigration fight so we can talk about other things. I want to talk about movies. Look, when all of this is over, Defiance.org is just going to become a podcast that's like film review. We're going to talk about Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, and we're going to go to the movies together, and we're going to do 4 thumbs up instead of 2 thumbs up. It's going to be great. But right now, we've got to fight against a fascist. So tell me this, Jess. Talk to me about what you're seeing, because it does sound like there is an enormous escalation happening. I'm hearing it from people on the ground in different states. I'm hearing it from people in federal law enforcement. And then I saw, according to the New York Times, that ICE has arrested more than 10,000 people in just a 5-day span. They are on a blitz, nearly doubling the pace from earlier this year. What are you hearing and seeing, and how should we be responding to it?
Yeah, absolutely, Miles. Well, first is that's exactly what's happening. And I think it's really critical to put into context the increase that's happening. In December, when we were seeing them, absolutely rounding up people on the streets, or even in Minnesota, where if you talk to people in Minnesota, they would say they felt like they were occupied as if like a war zone. We were only seeing, somewhere around 1,000 to 1,200 people a day being deported. And we're seeing well above that over this 5-day period. So this is a massive escalation that is going to be, the ripples of this will be felt for a really, really long time. The most obvious one, of course, is families being immediately separated. But what we have also learned after almost a year now of this escalation from the Trump administration is there is also long-term ripple effects that begin to happen. And we're seeing those play out, and we're going to see them play out even more over the next few months. Businesses begin to close because the customers are not there. Literally, they're not there anymore. People don't show up for work because they're afraid of getting raided at work. And so they lose their jobs. Children are not showing up to school, and parents are no longer present, so teachers can't get a hold of them. And it goes on and on and on. And then we're also seeing the effects of the kind of secondary effects of that as well, which is we're seeing health challenges associated with this because people don't want to go to the hospital because they're afraid they'll get turned into ICE. And so much more. Students who haven't shown back up to school, and so they are not reading at the level that they should. They're having developmental challenges. And I think that that's really, really important because there's the obvious devastation that is happening when hundreds of thousands of families are being separated. But there's also a reaction that's happening from the community, and that will only continue. Second thing I think is really important about this is, earlier this year, if you're thinking about December, January, February, when this was in the news all of the time, we had the ability to push back against this, to say, this is horrible. I can't believe this is happening. Look at this thing, this clip on social media. what we're going to put it in your face. And that's part of why we were able to stop even more deportations from happening. The Trump administration is getting smarter. They're going underground. They're not making a big spectacle. They're not sending out their big headliners to, lead the troops and give a good shot. And that makes it so much harder for the average American to see what's happening and to use their voice and push back. And that's one of our biggest forms of power in actually contending with this and stopping deportations, which is a thing we all need to keep doing. And so that means we're going to have to redouble our efforts to not only make sure people understand that this is happening, but also help people see the effects of this when we don't have viral social media clips to get people mad about this every day, because that's exactly what the Trump administration doesn't want to happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jess, you're leading a big organizing effort for Latinos. As these stories have been rolling out throughout this administration, and we see news stories like this. I mean, oftentimes I think one thing that helps me get through like the cynicism of the moment is how we can use these awful stories to our advantage to, awaken a political movement that really hasn't existed in America for some time, a type of civic engagement that hasn't existed. What are you seeing from the Latino community throughout this administration and more recently with this recent uptick?
Yeah, it's almost like the most incredible dawn of something, and then also people hiding underground. So I'll start with the bad, because I think the bad is really important. People are very afraid. I talk every single day to people who are afraid. They're afraid to leave their homes. They're afraid to go to work. They're afraid to engage with the government at all. And that is going to affect our elections. I keep trying to tell everybody, whatever we've known about baseline turnout of Latinos before this, or how Latinos vote, that was before. In BT time, that was before Trump time. After Trump time, in AT time, there's no such thing as baseline Latino turnout. There's no such thing as how Latinos used to act, because we have completely changed my community's relationship with the United States government. That's going to make it really, really tough. I mean, we're going to redouble our efforts to try to get people out. We're going to have to answer people's very real fear about giving private information to the government. And so that is something that we're really pushing back against as much as possible. Voter protection efforts are going to have to be Latino specific. They're going to have to be in Spanish. They're going to have to start earlier to help people really see that it's safe for them to be at the polling places, and that their community will stand up and protect them, that their community will make sure that they're able to participate, because that's an incredibly important, probably the most impactful way that we can push back against this right now. That's going to be hard.
Jess, can I just say there's one piece here, though, that I think a lot of everyday Americans do not understand. I talk to folks every day about immigration, and people on the pro-democracy side will still say, yeah, but their enforcement efforts are egregious, but they're going after folks who cross the border illegally, and it's not necessarily people we're counting on to show up at the polls. No. That fundamentally betrays the truth of what's happening here, which is, yes, the administration is going after people they say cross the border illegally. And within the past 2 years, they're trying to put them into expedited removal proceedings. But they're going after people on student visas. They're going after people here on work visas. They're going after people who are naturalized U.S. citizens. They are talking about the Stephen Miller special of denaturalizing people who think they are citizens and have all the rights of citizens to vote. That fear has spread through the legal immigrant community. It's not just people who are undocumented who are afraid. Legal immigrants everywhere are terrified that the U.S. government's going to go back on its commitment that they're American citizens. So they don't want to show up. They don't want their friends and family to show up. They don't want to falsely be arrested or accused. And guess what? There have been tens of thousands of cases of federal judges saying that this administration unlawfully detained people, right? If you're a Latino woman and you're going to the polls, you're like, yeah, maybe I was born in America. I've been here my whole life. I don't want them to racially profile me and arrest me when I'm going to the polls. So they're like, I know I have a right to vote. I'm not going to go exercise it. That's what I think people don't get, is the whole community is terrified.
Absolutely. And I want to just say, even for myself, my family has been here since before the United States was Mexico, and then we became Americans by the United States declaring that the place where we lived in Mexico was America. So, you know, I'm a citizen. My mom's a citizen. My dad's a citizen. My grandpa's a citizen. My great-grandfather was deported under something called Operation Wetback. He was a United States citizen that was deported at 4 years old back to Mexico during a similar time in the United States history. So for me personally, I am scared because in my own family, this has already happened in the United States government. But I'm also scared because, Miles, exactly what you said. If your last name is Latino, if you are someone who's known to push back against immigration and the Trump administration's policies, this is a really scary time. And I do absolutely believe that we're under more scrutiny and that Latinos are going to be targeted at the polls. Every single thing the Trump administration has done so far has shown that. The other thing I think is really critical is people who had status weeks ago, months ago, days ago, because of the rapid nature of the Trump administration and the work that they're doing to rescind people's legal status, do not have status. Yeah. They woke up with status, and by the end of the day, they did not have status anymore. You're looking at TPS holders, for instance, these are people, many of them have been here for 10, 20 years. Spouses of people with visas who no longer have status, DACA recipients, of course, who are in limbo right now, who sort of have status. It is the absolute assault on immigration, period, has put hundreds of thousands of people in limbo and created new people for the Trump administration to deport, because that's their goal. Their goal is to deport as many people as possible. It isn't to make sure that people who have citizenship applications get those applications processed, or people who are applying for asylum are able to make their case about why they need asylum. So that is also, it's not just creating fear. There is no way for these people that are in this new limbo to actually make things right or to try to change it. It all leads to deportation. So it is so scary, and it, not even to mention the United States citizens and green card holders and others who have already been deported. That has happened. All of this is real. It's not fake. It's not overstated. It's happening right now. It's coming up right now. So that's
the bad news, Jess. But what's the good news? You said you were going to give us good news.
Let's go to the good news, because I think the good news is important. You're exactly right that a new movement is being created, and these are people who are saying, whoa. This actually is not who I am. This doesn't represent the country that I want to be a part of. It doesn't represent the people that I know, my neighbors, my friends, my coworkers. And so we're seeing unprecedented activity across the United States of people standing up for immigrant communities and against these attacks. I think that's really, really, I'm totally inspired by that. And I don't think it's like Pollyanna. I think it's real that actually there are people who are saying, I'm going to be brave and stand up against our government for the things that they are doing that are not okay and that don't represent me. And our community is seeing that. I hear from Latinos who are scared, but I also hear from Latinos who are saying, the people came and helped us. They drop off groceries. They're helping get our kids to school. They've been helping us with other types of mutual aid. They've been helping me with my job so that I don't have to go in and I can work from home. I lost my job. They're giving me some odd jobs to help out and make some money. So we are actually responding in ways that we never have before, that are making a real difference and are making people feel less alone. Not only each other that are engaging in that activism, but all of the Latino families that are facing deportation. They know that this doesn't represent all of America. It represents a really small portion of America. And that's amazing. That has never happened before, and it's happening now. And it's going to animate people to the polls in November, and that's really critical. And so when we're saying, hey, you have to use your voice even though you're scared, let's be courageous together, we're able to say, and there's millions of people who have also been courageous too. And we're going to stand with them and they're going to stand with you. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So there's one more story today. And Xander, maybe you want to jump in on this too. One more story today I want to ask you about, Jess, which is that it's not just the people who face the fear of deportation and immigration action. The Trump administration now appears to be ramping up intimidation of critics of ICE, saying that they are becoming targets too for legitimate criticism of the agency. And there's this, for instance, a New York man who's suing DHS after agents allegedly tracked him down months after he sent a sharply worded email criticizing ICE leadership. According to that lawsuit, agents visited his home, tracked him to a hotel where he was staying with his 7-year-old daughter, and asked him to sign a warning notice suggesting his email could constitute a crime. There's been a whole bunch more reports out there about things along these lines. I want to get your reaction to that, Jess, and Xander, you as well, and also what we can do to counter that intimidation, because I think we are just seeing the beginning of it.
Yeah, I'll just give you my reaction right now.
That's a good one. All I can see is the I just saw the but I think I understood what you wrote.
I self-censor. That's my immediate reaction. Please come send me a warning, assholes. Go ahead, Jess. I'm sure you have something more intelligent to say.
Well, we've seen over and over I agree with the sentiments, Xander, but we've seen over and over that the Trump administration is not only attacking immigrants and immigrant families, they're also attacking protests. And again, I just think that there's a reason for that. That is our most powerful weapon, is pushing back and raising our voices and calling out these abuses. And so they're going to do everything they can. We're just like we're seeing an escalation in deportations. We're seeing escalation in trying to get people around deportation. Maz, I'm glad you mentioned this story, because I think it's very telling that not only that they did this, obviously, to this one individual, not to a group or, to a set of people, but one person. But then, of course, the story is getting out there about that. That also scares people, right? They're like, oh, no, is that what they're doing? That makes people question. So I think these are times that demand courage. We have to be courageous. It is, believe it or not, it is courageous to post on Facebook, and you got to keep posting on Facebook. And if somebody, I can't believe I have to tell people this, but I'm going to tell everybody, if the police come to your door, unless they have a warrant, you don't need to let them in and you don't need to talk to them. And that is a right that we have in this country, and we need to exercise our rights to the fullest. They are taking away our rights, not trying. They are taking away our rights. So we have to push back by saying, I know what my rights are, and I am going to exercise them. It's critical. It's absolutely critical. They are doing that so that we are scared. We will not be scared. We will continue to push back because we know what we are allowed to do as Americans, and we're going to keep being Americans. They can't stop us from doing that.
Jess, I just want to ask, just to double click on the being courageous and showing bravery. We talked a bit, I think, yesterday about that picture from DC of the white supremacist on the bus with the black woman. And one thing we spoke about is it's unfortunate that black woman was sitting alone in that picture. And just as a reminder to go sit next to that person if you see them. We've talked to our community a lot about poll watching to make sure Latinos feel safe to come out to support join local community efforts that are kind of community organizers of Latinos, so they can figure out how to best ally with their Latino neighbors. What else does that look like, Jess? What are we not doing? What even to the extent of is there something that needs to be built or a movement that needs to be started for, folks to be, for allies, to make sure that we're showing up in all the ways necessary so this community not only feels safe, but is safe. It's not just a feeling. They are not safe some of the time right now. And so What do we need to do?
Couple of things. One, schools and daycares. We got to make sure that those are safe places. So if you need to talk to your local PTA or your school board about making sure that schools and daycares are safe havens, that when people are going inside and outside, they are protected. Some people are doing school patrols in the morning, kind of a drop off and pick up. That's one. That's a really easy, clear one. And school boards, by the way, need to be held accountable to that too. Go to those school board meetings. You can really get a lot done in a school board meeting. Two, go to Latino businesses. At Marimoto, you can go to somosmaremoto.org. We'll have them send it around in email. We have a Latino business directory. Go to Latino businesses. We are losing our clients, and we need those clients Latino businesses are the backbone of the Latino community. That's our kind of third space. And so we don't want them to close. It's really, really important.
And good news, gang, Latino food is really good. There's a lot
So
of
good. So good. Yes. So please buy Latino, support Latino businesses. And it's a great way to also get to know people in your community. And I would say the third kind of like a really important thing is if you are active as like an election official or helping with polls or canvassing and stuff like that, you need to make sure that whatever you're doing, there's a plan for what happens if ICE comes to the polls, or what happens if someone is turned away because they speak Spanish, or if people are intimidated outside or around. It's really that's something that's we're going to see that crop up more and more and more. Lastly, maybe it's a little spicy for the Defiance crew, but I feel like you guys are a little spicy.
We're pretty spicy.
We dropped like 3 F-bombs on today's episode. I'm trying to hear about
this. Was an extra spicy episode.
Yeah, people are not going to like that, I'm sure. But people, the only way this happens is if ICE officers continue to perpetuate this. ICE officers are people in our communities. They are members of our families. They are people that ICE is a huge employer right now. So you should look, is there an ICE job fair in your community? Because you should tell people that are at that job fair, here's other jobs that you can get. I would like to help you.
That's such a great one.
Get another job.
I would love the idea of people showing up at the job fair and like counter programming a nice job fair with like all sorts of other jobs.
Here are other jobs, better jobs where you don't have to deport families. Like go work literally anywhere else.
No, it's so real. I mean, I went to visit a friend that was in ICE detention when I was back in New York like a month ago, and it's jarring, not just ICE, but also Core Civic and Geo Group, their employees. I was like so excited to face down like, this like MAGA looking guy and whatnot. And it's a bunch of black and brown people from the same communities as the people getting swept up and incarcerated. At least that was my experience in the times that I've either faced down ICE or I've, went and visited my incarcerated friend. It is that, and it's a reminder that like, not only do we need to like go after those job fairs, but we need to really create a meaningful social safety net in this country where people don't have to take jobs.
Jess, let me before we let you go, I want to leave you with a piece of good news, because the thing that you were just talking about is something we lived through, a microcosm of it as an organization, the intimidation of people who are speaking out about this issue. Because if we let them scare us into not highlighting these abuses of power, which is what they want to do, trust me, lived it, worked in that administration, Donald Trump, Stephen Miller and company want to scare the shit out of you so you don't criticize them, so that when they ramp up from 2,000 a day to 3,000 a day to 4,000 a day, you're not doing anything and people are just being swept away in the night. That's what they want. Who controls that? They don't control that. You control that. And here's the microcosm. Here's the good news. A few weeks ago, we experienced this. A group of assholes hacked into a list of people who signed up in our organization to go stand up against ICE publicly, right? And they went and doxed them. They emailed all of them and said, we know who you are. And that's scary. That was like 20,000 people who got this scary email from these assholes who, by the way, are going to be held accountable. I can only say so much publicly. And I want you to guess, Jess, how many of those 20,000 people do you think emailed us back and said, I need you to take me off the list?
I hope none.
It was like 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically the same as none.
If you want to talk about defiance, baby, less than 0.1% of people put up with your intimidation bullshit, you thugs. You thugs who think you're protected by your big orange menace in the White House. You thugs who think you can silence people away from standing up. You fucking failed. We're not going to put up with it. We're going to continue to speak out. We're going to be unafraid to speak out. We're going to hit that like button. We're going to sign up on those lists, and we're going to keep organizing. And I think this week, Xander, we're having another meeting of that organization, GTFO ICE. Get the facilities out, ICE. So take that, you jerks. You will not silence us. And if there's one data point I can give you, it's that 99.99% of people are refusing to be shut up. So anyway, take that. I'll get off my soapbox.
And
but I wanted to leave you with that good news, Jess.
And we're going to write mean messages in Sharpie.
That's right.
You
And apologies to anyone out there who feels like we burned your ears off today. I know the episode got a little spicy, but sometimes we're R-rated and not PG-13.
That actually really does give me hope. I've been working in the immigration movement for 20 years, and I'm thinking, of course, all the time about the summer of 2018 when I started Families Belong Together with my friend Ai Poo to push back against family separation at the border. That was when Miles and I were not. We were on opposing sides here.
Well, we were on the same side. It's just I was behind enemy lines, but that's a longer conversation.
There you go. And at the time, we were pushing back against what was happening in detention centers. We were pushing back against conditions in detention centers. That was like an incredible, amazing, historic American moment. And it was nothing like what's happening now. So we're building on the movement. We're building on a momentum. And we have not been able to stop everything. And I don't want to be Pollyanna about it. Hundreds of thousands of people have been deported, and that is devastating. But we've been able to stop hundreds of thousands more from being deported. We've been able to stop detention centers. These are things we haven't been able to do at this kind of scale before. I think the movement is only growing. And it's amazing. The more that we do this, the more that we can kind of throw sand in the gears of everything, and that's what we have to do to stop them.
And a little bit of sand in their eyes too. But anyway, not that that'll kill anyone, but maybe
we didn't mean to. Side effects.
Is irritable. And Jess, I don't know if I've ever gotten to say this to you, and I know we've talked about these issues. It worked. On family separation, what you did, what ordinary Americans did, worked. I had a front row seat behind the scenes of the Trump administration in free fall, panicking. Why? Not because Donald Trump woke up one morning and grew a conscience. He never did. He smarted for years about the end of family separation, ordered people like me to turn it back on, to which we said, no, Mr. President. They stopped because people spoke out. Remember that. When you're trying to decide if you're going to keep your voice, when you're trying to decide if you're going to retweet the thing that's critical of ICE, remember that. Jess Morales-Raquetto, you are a patriot, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everything you do.
Thanks so much, and lots of love to the Defiance community. So appreciative of everything that you all are doing.
Right
See you soon, my friend.
Jess.
Bye.
Sander, final segment of the show today and every day is who is joining the Defiance. And we're going to wrap up the episode by revealing our newest member, where we meet Adrian Torres, the chief of the highly acclaimed Mexican restaurant Maximo in Houston, Texas. Adrian left Mexico at 5 years old as a DACA recipient and came to America and started his culinary career. And it looks like all of his hard work paid off this week, because last month, Chicago hosted the James Beard Foundation Awards, which is commonly referred to as basically the Oscars of the food world, where at just 27 years old, Adrian was awarded the National Emerging Chef Award. Very prestigious award, right? Given to the best of the best, likely on track to disrupt the culinary world. But this win meant more to Adrian than just a trophy. Let's take a look at his heartfelt acceptance speech that reminded audiences of the reality of so many immigrants in this country.
Mom sat my sister and I and had a conversation with us that I will never forget. She said, never tell anyone about your legal status. Never talk about our immigration journey. For a long time, fear was our story. Today, standing on this stage, I want to say something that I never thought my younger self would have the opportunity to say. I am proud to be the son of immigrants. I am proud to be an immigrant. I am proud to be a DACA recipient. This week, while many of us flew to Chicago, my family and I drove across the country to be here. Not because we wanted to take a road trip, but because that's the reality that so many immigrant families still live with. Even in moments of celebration, there are reminders that our journey is different. But tonight, I refuse to let fear be the headline. Tonight, the headline is that a brown kid from the north side, raised by parents who sacrificed everything for the chance at a better life, is standing on this stage accepting one of the highest honors in this industry. Mamá y papá, gracias por dejar su tierra para darle a su familia una oportunidad. Nunca podré pagar ese sacrificio, pero espero que momentos como este les recuerden que todo valió la pena. Palomita, gracias por siempre ser la luz en mi camino. Te amo con todo mi corazón. And to our incredible front of house team, thank you for making us look good every single day.
I guarantee you Xander's crying. Xander, you crying?
I was fighting it up close. It's real
We
close.
almost always get him. Who is joining the Defiance is the opportunity to turn on the waterworks for Xander.
I know, it really is.
That's pretty cool. I cannot imagine a better bookend to that conversation with Jess than seeing someone in the Latino community go up there on stage and say, do not be afraid, tell your story, stand up. That's the same energy that we're going to bring into the elections. And for folks who are just new to defiance.org, just the other week, we funded a group to go out there and do Latino organizing in the elections to help make people be unafraid to come forward. And I believe Voto Latino was the group that we partnered with, Xander. So we're looking forward to getting an update from them. But in the meantime, Adrian, thank you for your courage and welcome to the Defiance.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Pretty good stuff. Xander, a couple of housekeeping notes. Tell the folks why they should join us tomorrow. It's Wednesday. What does that mean?
It's our weekly mission, gang. It's when we get together to hear what we can do to stop fascism in America. And tomorrow is going to be a really good one. Miles, how much should I spoil? You're usually the cliffhanger guy. How much do you want me to let on?
Leave it there. Don't show too much like Xander.
I'm more the leak out of the two of us. So.
If this is something that you are concerned about, if you, like us, are worried about the Trump administration building a police state and using immigration as its Trojan horse to build a police state, then you will want to be with us tomorrow, because every Wednesday we announce real actions we are taking to combat Donald Trump's abuses of power. Not just a checklist we're going to send you or some ideas. We're going to do something about it every week. That's why we exist. We exist to go do something about it. If that inspires you, go sign up for free for our updates. Go to defiance.org. You can sign up and see what we're doing. You can become a member to help us do it. We are a entirely member-funded nonprofit organization. Help us take these actions to combat Trump's corruption at defiance.org. And also, if you're a defiance.org member, reminder, you have something in your inbox that a lot of you have been asking us for. You have been asking us to give you the keys so that you can give friends and family members the opportunity to come try us out, to come be a part of this club. So we sent you a link that you can give to friends and family to give them 2 weeks of a free trial of membership in defiance.org. They can cancel at any time if they want. Hopefully they'll be inspired to fight back against a wannabe despot in the White House and stick with us. But we sent that to you. It should be in your email inbox. Check your spam and trash if you don't see it. But grow the Defiance. Help us grow the Defiance in this country so we can support more amazing organizations like Voto Latino, like the groups that we're going to team with when we announce our actions tomorrow, and as we continue to fight back against Donald Trump's abuses of power and corruption. That is our show today. Please join us 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, and we've got a lot more coming later this week, so stay tuned. And in the meantime, what do we always say, Xander? Stay loud, stay brave, and
stay together.
That's right. Stay classy, San Diego. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.